Dear friends, welcome to our channel. We are very happy to share with you different stories about love and betrayal from around the world. So let's begin our story journey today. Buenos Aires, Argentina, a city that perfectly blends European elegance with Latin passion. In a modern apartment in Palermo, a wealthy district in the northern part of the city, Morgan is preparing for his 40th birthday party. As a project manager for a well-known local architectural firm, Morgan has won countless major projects for the company over the past 15 years. His professionalism and dedication have earned him an excellent reputation in the industry. Morgan dims the lights in the dining room and checks the decorations on the table. He wants everything to be perfect. After all, it's the 12th birthday he's celebrating with his wife, Vega. Vega is a psychology professor at the University of Buenos Aires. They met at an architecture seminar when she was researching the impact of environment on human psychology. Their marriage has always been considered exemplary by their friends. They have a 10-year-old son named Leo, and both their family and careers are very stable. However, in recent months, Morgan has felt the distance between him and Vega quietly growing. She began working late frequently, participating in more academic activities, and sometimes returning home late at night. When he asked, Vega always said that the university had been under a lot of pressure lately and that she had several important research projects requiring her full attention. Morgan understands the challenges of academic work, so he didn't question further. "Dad, where should I hang the balloons?" Leo runs out from the kitchen with a bunch of colorful balloons in his hand. "Hang them from the ceiling in the living room, just like we agreed." Morgan smiles and ruffles his son's hair. "When will Mom be back?" "She said she still needed to pick up the cake, and she'll be back soon." Leo answers and runs off to hang the balloons. Morgan sighs and looks at his watch. There's only an hour until the party begins, and guests will soon arrive. He takes out his phone and sends a message to Vega. "Dear, everything is ready, just missing you and the cake. Need any help?" The phone soon vibrates. Vega replies, "Don't worry, I'm already on my way. Tonight will be special." Morgan smiles and puts the phone back in his pocket. Tonight will indeed be special because he has prepared an unexpected gift for Vega. A gift that took him several months to prepare. 2 months ago, Morgan received a call from a stranger. On the other end of the phone was a woman who introduced herself as a university colleague, saying she needed to speak with Morgan privately about Vega. Out of curiosity, Morgan agreed to meet. In a quiet cafe, this professor named Reyes told Morgan that Vega was having an affair with Duarte, a photography professor from the art faculty. Reyes was Duarte's ex-girlfriend and discovered their relationship by chance. She provided several photos of Vega and Duarte in intimate contact outside campus, as well as screenshots of their text messages, which were explicit and direct. At first, Morgan refused to believe this evidence. Vega was a rational, mature woman. How could she do something like this? But as Reyes provided more evidence, along with Vega's recent unusual behavior, a terrible truth began to form in Morgan's mind. Morgan didn't immediately question his wife, but decided to gather more evidence. He hired a private detective to follow Vega and Duarte, and soon confirmed their relationship. The detective provided more photos, videos, and even records of the two entering and leaving a hotel. Most shocking to Morgan was that the detective also discovered that Duarte had a history of relationships with married women, and Vega was just his latest target. For Morgan, this discovery was more painful than the betrayal itself. Duarte didn't truly love Vega. He just saw her as another conquest. And the most heartbreaking thing was that the detective discovered Duarte was secretly recording all their conversations and intimate moments with Vega. He planned to use them as material for his next photography exhibition, whose theme was psychological changes in extramarital relationships. After learning the truth, Morgan didn't collapse but planned a meticulous revenge. First, he hacked into Duarte's computer network, obtaining more details about this art project and Duarte's private records with other women. Morgan has a friend who works in cybersecurity who helped him complete this task. He continued pretending he knew nothing, even encouraging Vega to participate in more academic activities, giving her more time to be with Duarte. At the same time, he began collecting Duarte's past works, contacting his former lovers, and collaborating with an art critic, preparing to expose Duarte's true nature at the right time. During this time, Morgan strived to maintain outer calm, continuing with his responsibilities as a husband and father. He picked up and dropped off Leo at school punctually, attended his soccer games, and helped him with his homework. At night, he would tell Leo stories, trying to minimize the child's distress over his mother's absence. "Why does mom always come home so late?" Leo asked one night before bed. Morgan, suppressing his inner bitterness, answered gently, "Mom has a very important job now. She's working hard to be a better teacher so she can help more students." "But I miss her," Leo said quietly. "I do too, son," Morgan replied softly, with unmistakable pain shining in his eyes. On the day of the birthday party, guests arrived one by one. There were Morgan's colleagues, Vega's university friends, as well as their neighbors and family members. Vega looked radiant, wearing a new red dress and elaborate makeup. She enthusiastically welcomed the guests, occasionally smiling at Morgan. If it weren't for already knowing the truth, Morgan would almost have been deceived by her performance. Halfway through the party, Vega suddenly asked for silence. She walked to the center of the room with an elegant gift box in her hand. "Today is my husband's 40th birthday," she smiled and said. "I want to give him a special gift, a gift he definitely wouldn't expect." The guests applauded and laughed, waiting to see the scene unfold. Morgan stood to the side, an expression of expectation on his face, but in his heart, he already knew what was about to happen. Vega approached Morgan and handed him the gift box. "Dear, the best gift I give you this year is a divorce agreement," she announced, with a touch of defiance in her voice. The room immediately fell silent. The guests looked uncomfortably at Morgan, not knowing if this was a terribly bad joke or if something had really happened. Morgan slowly opened the box, and inside was indeed a divorce agreement, already signed by Vega. Morgan raised his head and looked directly into Vega's eyes. He showed no anger or sadness, but instead gave a calm smile. "What a coincidence. I also have a gift for you," said Morgan, pulling out a small black velvet box from the inside pocket of his suit. Vega, confused, took the box and opened it before everyone's gaze. Inside was a USB flash drive and a small card that said, "Please play the contents." Leo ran over, looking curiously at his mother. "Mom, what gift is it?" Vega's face turned pale. She seemed to realize something. "Leo, can you go to your room? Mom and Dad need to talk about something with the guests." "But I want to see the gift," Leo insisted. "Go to your room, now," Morgan said softly but firmly. "I'll explain everything tomorrow." Seeing his father's unusual serious expression, Leo reluctantly nodded and left the living room. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very sorry to interrupt the party." Morgan turned to the guests. "It seems there are some family matters that need to be addressed tonight. Thank you all for coming, but I would like to ask you to give us some privacy." The guests looked at each other and then began to say goodbye. In less than 10 minutes, only Morgan and Vega remained in the apartment. "What is this?" Vega asked, holding the USB flash drive with a trembling voice. "Why don't you see for yourself?" Morgan calmly suggested, walking to the TV and inserting the flash drive. A series of images and videos appeared on the screen. First, intimate photos of Vega and Duarte on various occasions, then explicit records of their text messages. But the most shocking was the audio from Duarte's diary that played next. It detailed how he planned to use Vega as part of his art project, how he manipulated her emotions, and how he planned to abandon her once the work was complete. "Impossible. This can't be true." Vega collapsed onto the sofa, her eyes fixed on the screen, unable to believe what she was seeing and hearing. "There's more," Morgan said coldly, switching to the next file. It was a video of a conversation between Duarte and another woman, where he described in detail how he used Vega's professional background to provide a psychological perspective for his artistic creation. He also explained how he planned to use her photos and private records in the exhibition. "He was using you, Vega, just like he used other women before," Morgan said, with no compassion in his voice. "And you, a psychology professor, couldn't detect such obvious manipulation." Vega's face went from pale to desperate gray. She began to shake violently, with silent tears running down her cheeks. "I didn't know. I thought he was sincere. I thought we had a special connection," she mumbled, as if trying to convince herself. "You betrayed me. You betrayed Leo. You betrayed our family. All for a man who saw you as a piece of art," Morgan said in a low but firm voice. "Now, you want a divorce. Fine, I accept. But I need you to know that you haven't just lost a husband who loved you, but also your self-dignity and respect. Morgan, please. Vega raised her head, with pleading in her eyes. This was a mistake, a terrible mistake. We can fix all this. No, Vega, there are things that once broken cannot be repaired. Trust is one of them, Morgan said, taking the divorce agreement. I've already contacted lawyers. They will handle the details. As for Leo, I'm going to seek full custody. Considering these proofs and the damage your behavior has caused him, I think the court will be on my side. You can't take Leo away. Vega suddenly exclaimed emotionally. He's my son too. You should have thought of that when you betrayed us, Morgan coldly replied. Now, please gather your things and leave here tonight. Tomorrow you can come say goodbye to Leo, explain why his mother suddenly decided to abandon the family. Vega completely broke down. She knelt on the floor and cried painfully. I love Leo, and I love you too. I just got lost. Please give me a chance. Love is not an excuse, Vega. Responsibility and loyalty are the foundation of marriage, Morgan said, turning and heading to the bedroom, leaving Vega alone in the living room, shattered. In the bedroom, Morgan finally allowed himself to release the emotions he had suppressed for so long. He sat on the edge of the bed and silently cried for the lost love, for the broken family, for the pain that Leo would soon face. But he knew that, although painful, this was necessary. Some betrayals are too deep to be forgiven, some wounds too severe to heal. Tomorrow, he would face a new reality, a life without Vega. He would need to help Leo understand and accept this change, while rebuilding his own life. It wouldn't be easy, but Morgan knew he had to be strong, not just for himself, but also for his son. This is the price of betrayal. Everyone must pay it. No one can truly win. The night Vega left, Morgan barely slept. He sat outside Leo's room, listening to his son's steady breathing, thinking about how to explain to a 10-year-old child why his mother suddenly left home. The next morning, when Leo woke up and asked about the party and why the guests had left early, Morgan knew he could no longer postpone it. Son, there's something I need to tell you, Morgan said, sitting on the edge of Leo's bed, trying to keep his voice calm. Mom and I have decided to separate for a while. Leo's eyes immediately filled with confusion and fear. Why? Did I do something wrong? No, absolutely not, Morgan immediately replied, hugging Leo tightly. This has nothing to do with you. It's completely an adult matter. Sometimes, even when adults love each other, they can take different paths. Where's Mom? Will she come back? Leo asked, his voice trembling. Mom is living in another place now, but she still loves you very much, Morgan said softly. She'll come to see you today. You can talk. Just then, the doorbell rang. Morgan took a deep breath, knowing it was Vega. That might be Mom. Are you ready to see her? Leo nodded and jumped out of bed, running toward the door. Morgan followed, his heart full of complex emotions. When Morgan opened the door, he barely recognized the Vega standing there. She looked exhausted, with swollen eyes, obviously having not slept all night. But when she saw Leo, she immediately put on a smile, although filled with sadness. Leo, my love. She crouched down and opened her arms. Leo hesitated for a moment, then ran into her embrace. Vega hugged her son tightly, with silent tears rolling down her cheeks. Mom, why are you leaving? Leo asked, his voice muffled against Vega's shoulder. Vega looked at Morgan, uncertain how to respond. Morgan nodded slightly, indicating she could answer honestly, but without going into details that would be too complex for Leo. Mom made a bad decision and hurt Dad's feelings, Vega said softly. Sometimes, adults make mistakes, and some mistakes can't easily be fixed. But you can forgive each other, like when I do something bad and you forgive me, Leo said innocently. Vega and Morgan exchanged a painful look. Some things are more complicated, Morgan finally said. Now, why don't you spend the morning with Mom? You can go to the park or do anything you want. Leo nodded, though still confused, but his face showed a small smile. Can we go feed the pigeons? He asked Vega. Of course, darling, Vega replied, struggling to maintain stability in her voice. Go get your coat. When Leo ran back to his room to get his coat, Vega turned to Morgan. Thank you for not telling him the truth, she said quietly. I'm not doing it for you, but for him, Morgan replied coldly. He doesn't need to know how his mother betrayed his father. At least not now. Morgan, about last night, about Duarte, Vega began to say, but Morgan interrupted her. I don't want to hear it, he said firmly. You made your choice, now I'm making mine. I've already contacted lawyers, they'll handle the divorce. As for Leo, I hope we can reach a shared custody agreement, with the condition that you guarantee Duarte will not come near him. Duarte and I are over, Vegas said, with anger and pain in her eyes. After seeing those videos, I realized he never really cared about me. He was just using me. At least we agree on that, Morgan said sarcastically. But that doesn't change anything. Once trust is broken, it cannot be rebuilt. I know you're angry now, and you have a right to be, Vegas said, in a low voice. But remember, whatever happens, we are still Leo's parents. He needs both of us. Morgan looked at her, with complex emotions shining in his eyes. I will never prevent you from seeing Leo. He loves you and needs you. But between us, it's over. At that moment, Leo returned, wearing his coat, ready to leave. Vega brightened up and took her son's hand. Ready to go feed the pigeons? Ready, Leo replied excitedly, then turned to Morgan. Dad, do you want to come with us? Morgan shook his head, forcing a smile. No, son. Today is for you and Mom. I have some work to do. After watching Vega and Leo leave, Morgan closed the door and sighed deeply. He knew the coming days wouldn't be easy, but he was prepared to face everything. However, Morgan's revenge plan wasn't over yet. In the process of collecting evidence about Duarte, he discovered even more shocking information. Duarte not only had a history of relationships with married women, but had also been fired from a previous university for sexually harassing students. But this fact had been covered up. Morgan decided to expose the whole truth about Duarte, not just for his own revenge, but also to protect other women who might become his targets. Morgan contacted a programmer friend known in underground hacker circles. Through him, he obtained all the files from Duarte's computer, including all the photos and videos he had recorded over the past few years. Among these files, there were not only intimate images of Vega, but also similar content of many other women, several of whom were Duarte's students. In the following weeks, Morgan first anonymously sent these materials to the university's board of directors and academic committee. At the same time, he provided detailed evidence about Duarte's behavior. Then, through several fake identities, he spread the advance of the betrayal exhibition planned by Duarte in the art world, generating widespread attention and controversy. He also contacted several art magazines and local media, revealing how Duarte used intimate relationships as a tool for artistic creation, violating the privacy of many women. The most destructive step was when Morgan hacked Duarte's social media and email accounts. He published details of how he planned to use these women, as well as his contemptuous comments about other artists. He ensured that all operations were carried out through multiple proxy servers and VPNs, impossible to trace back to him. Duarte's world soon collapsed. The university initiated a formal investigation and, faced with conclusive evidence, asked him to resign. His planned exhibition was canceled, and his reputation in the artistic circle vanished. More seriously, several former victims, anonymously encouraged, came forward to tell their experiences. This triggered a widespread debate about artistic ethics and consent. One night, as Morgan was preparing dinner for Leo, the doorbell rang. When he opened the door, he saw Duarte, no longer the confident and charismatic artist, but an emaciated and enraged man. It was you, wasn't it? Duarte asked, his voice trembling with rage. You've ruined my career, my life. No, Duarte, you ruined your own life, Morgan calmly replied. I just exposed the truth. You don't understand. This was art, an exploration of human emotions and relationships. Duarte passionately argued. Using others' trust and feelings is not art. It's manipulation and exploitation, Morgan said with a cold and firm voice. Now, please leave my home. If you come back to harass me or my family, I will request a restraining order and hand over to the police other materials of yours that I haven't made public. Duarte stared at Morgan with hatred in his eyes. This isn't over. You'll regret it, he threatened in a low voice, then turned and left. Morgan closed the door, alert. He immediately reinforced security measures in his home, installed surveillance cameras and alarm systems, and informed Vega about Duarte's threats to ensure Leo's safety. Days later, Morgan received an anonymous package. Inside was a beautiful art book with Vega's photo on the cover, titled Anatomy of Betrayal, an emotional experiment. Opening the book, it was full of photos of intimate moments between Vega and Duarte, as well as private messages she had written to him. The last page of the book had a note. Art is eternal. Revenge only brings more revenge. Anger and fear swept over Morgan. This book meant that Duarte had completed his art project and possibly planned to publish it. He immediately contacted his lawyer, requesting a temporary restraining order prohibiting Duarte from publishing any material containing images of Vega or private communications. At the same time, he also reported Duarte's harassment and threats to the police. Meanwhile, Vega's situation was not good. The blow of losing her job, husband, and reputation plunged her into a deep depression. She almost never left her newly rented apartment, refused contact with friends, and only brightened up when she was with Leo. One day, when Morgan went to pick up Leo, he received an alarming call from the administrator of Vega's apartment. She had not responded to any calls or knocks on the door for 24 hours. With a grim premonition, Morgan immediately rushed to her apartment. With the administrator's help, they opened the door and found Vega unconscious in the bathroom, with empty pill bottles and a half-finished glass of wine beside her. Morgan immediately called emergency services while trying to keep Vega conscious. "Why did you do this?" he asked in a low voice, with complex emotions in his heart. The ambulance quickly arrived and transferred Vega to the hospital. The doctors told Morgan that if they had arrived a little later, the consequences could have been disastrous. They pumped her stomach and stabilized her condition, but recommended she receive psychological therapy. In the hospital waiting room, Morgan waited restlessly. Although he couldn't forgive Vega's betrayal, he didn't want her to take a path of self-destruction, especially considering that Leo needed his mother. Just at that moment, he received a text message from an unknown number. "Have you seen the news? Your revenge is complete. You should be satisfied." Confused, Morgan opened his phone browser and saw the shocking headline. The renowned photographer Duarte had died in a car accident. According to witnesses, his car lost control on the highway and crashed into the central barrier. The police's preliminary investigation indicated that his brake system might have been tampered with, and they were investigating the case as a possible homicide. Morgan's heart raced, with terror and confusion intertwined. He had not sabotaged Duarte's car, which meant there could be someone else also targeting Duarte. Or the more disturbing possibility, someone knew about his revenge plan and was trying to implicate him in the murder. He immediately deleted the text message from his phone and planned to contact his hacker friend to ensure all traces were erased. When Vega woke up and learned of Duarte's death, she collapsed again. Despite his betrayal and using her, she had sincerely loved him, at least that's what she believed. "I've lost everything," she told Morgan, with desperation in her eyes. "My marriage, my career, even that relationship that, although based on lies, made me feel alive." "You still have Leo," Morgan reminded her. "He needs you to be strong." Vega looked at Morgan, with complex emotions in her eyes. "Do you know what's most ironic? Part of the reason I betrayed you was because I felt you were too perfect, too rational. Duarte made me feel passion, adventure, not just stability and security. But now I understand that all of that was false, and your love was the real thing." "That doesn't change anything, Vega," Morgan said quietly. "We cannot go back to the past, but we can try to create a healthy future for Leo." In the following months, Vega received psychological therapy and slowly recovered. She found a job at a small psychological consulting firm, no longer as a university professor, but at least she could continue with her profession. Morgan focused on his work and caring for Leo, trying to create a stable environment for his son. However, Morgan began receiving anonymous threatening letters, suggesting that someone knew about his connection to Duarte's death. Although he was sure he hadn't directly caused Duarte's death, his vengeful actions might have indirectly contributed to this result. This feeling of guilt and fear began to affect his daily life and work. The divorce process continued as planned, and finally the court ruled shared custody. Leo would live primarily with Morgan, but could see Vega regularly. Although this arrangement wasn't perfect, it at least ensured that Leo could maintain contact with both parents. A year later, on Morgan's 41st birthday, Vega sent a gift. a photo album with images of Leo from birth to the present, and a card that said, "Thank you for still being a good father in my darkest moment. I can never repair the damage I've caused you, but I want you to know that I regret my mistakes every day." Morgan looked at the album and felt a hint of relief in his heart, but not forgiveness. Some wounds are too deep to fully heal. Some betrayals too serious to be forgiven. But for Leo, for their son, he was willing to try to establish a new kind of relationship with Vega, not as husband and wife, but as co-parents. He sent Vega a brief message. "Thank you for the album. Leo wants to go to the zoo this weekend. Do you want to come?" This wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't reconciliation, but a compromise and acceptance for their son's sake. The scars of betrayal remained. Broken trust could not be rebuilt, but life had to go on. Meanwhile, the police investigation continued. One day, two detectives arrived at Morgan's office, asking about his relationship with Duarte and his whereabouts on the day of the incident. Although they didn't directly accuse him, Morgan could feel their suspicions. This pressure led him to question whether his vengeful actions had been worth it, and if the consequences exceeded what he could bear. Morgan stood by the window, looking at the night landscape of Buenos Aires, reflecting on everything that had happened in the past year. Revenge had not brought the expected satisfaction. Duarte's death had not repaired the wounds of betrayal, but had brought him new fear and uneasiness. In a way, each was a victim of this tragedy. Vega had lost her marriage and professional reputation. Duarte had paid with his life. Morgan had lost the love and trust he once believed in, while facing possible legal risks, and Leo had lost an intact family. But in the midst of these ruins, perhaps they could find a ray of hope, a new balance, not for themselves, but for Leo, for that innocent child caught in the complex game of the adult world. The price of betrayal is heavy, and each must bear its consequences. But perhaps, from this painful lesson, all could learn something about responsibility, honesty, and the importance of considering consequences before making potentially destructive decisions. Finally, Morgan closed the window and prepared to tell Leo a bedtime story. No matter the past, tomorrow would come, and life had to continue. This is the cruelty and beauty of reality. There are no perfect endings, just continuous processes of adjustment and adaptation. Each choice has its price, each betrayal its consequences, and true maturity lies in the willingness to face these consequences and try to rebuild life from them. This is the price of betrayal and also the truth of life. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating content. We look forward to seeing you in our next story.